Hello, everyone, and welcome to this lecture on how do I become a project manager. I wanted to create this lecture because once upon a time I also did not know what to expect from the project management profession. I had no experience, and I was kind of scratching my head as to how people would get hired as project managers, with very limited experience. I wasn't sure with such little experience how I would get hired as a project manager. So over the years, I did learn some tips and tricks to develop that experience, and then ultimately apply that to my project management certification. And ultimately, I got my certification and I got the necessary job experience. And thankfully, for over the last 5 to 6 years, I've been working as a senior project manager at various corporate firms. So, what I wanted to do here with this lecture is that I just wanted to go over with you some ideas from the perspective of if you're still in college with basically almost no experience in project management, and from the perspective if you're already a working professional but you're looking to transition into project management. So, what I'm going to cover here in this lecture are those two perspectives, and we'll get into it right now. So, from the first perspective that I wanted to do this scenario where you're still in college, and you might be asking yourself, well, how do I put any project management experience on my resume? Or how do I start going about getting project management experience, or just trying to establish that skill set? So on this slide, I have some points here. And the first one I wanted to start out is that treat your class group assignments as projects. And this is from the perspective of you want to become the leader of the project. Don't try not to be in the background. If the instructor is assigning you everyone into groups, volunteer to be the leader for that group. Per that second bullet point here on the slide, you want to establish your leadership for that group. Moving on to the third point, you want to help planning out the tasks for the project in some type of a plan. Now, the thing is with projects is that they have a specific start and end date. So projects are very finite, and your school assignment also is going to be finite. There's going to be your instructor will have a definite start date, and there's going to be a due date where your assignment will be graded. So this, in effect, kind of applies in the corporate world or the real world in the sense that you're going to have to map out a project plan. And what you're going to do is that you're going to meet with your teammates and establish that plan. This is not something you're going to do on your own. You definitely need the input from your teammates here to establish a plan. And this is exactly what happens in the real world. You need to have that plan in place. So, and the next thing you're gonna do here is you're gonna establish some sort of communications plan, because you got to communicate with your teammates as to when you're gonna meet to discuss the project. Are you gonna have virtual sessions? Are you gonna meet at the school? What are the timings as to when you're gonna meet? So here you might want to exchange cell phone numbers or emails, and here you want to confirm how often you want to meet to discuss the project. And again, this translates to real world experience in the sense that when you manage projects, you're going to need a communications plan to manage your project teams. So this is a good exercise to undertake here. Next bullet point is project management is not just about, writing up artifacts or developing project plans or working with numbers to figure out finances. You have to be a manager and you have to hold people accountable for the work that they're assigned. So you cannot be afraid to be a pest. Like here in the first bullet, you have to continually follow up with people and constantly remind them of the importance of submitting their task on time or meeting a certain milestone on time. And sometimes there's going to be contention You may have some back and forth. Things may get a little emotional, and in those situations, it doesn't necessarily help to continue arguing. What you want to do is you want to become more of the influencer here, and you want to point out why this project is so critical and why it's so important for all of you to finish together as a team, so you all can get a good grade for this particular project in your course. So you definitely want to be more of an influencer rather than somebody who's more argumentative, and you're kind of slamming the boot on the table, wanting people just to do what you want. You have to be more of an influencer here, but at the same time, you do have to hold people accountable. And the thing that the second bullet point here, this is not to be hostile or anything, but it's all about your team succeeding, and you want to strive to succeed and kind of come out on top at the end of this project. Now the thing is that if you make friends along the way, that's fantastic, but this is not necessarily your main goal. You're not here necessarily to make friends. Your goal is to finish the project. You can kind of think of it as a professional sports team striving to win a world championship. Now, it's great if there's camaraderie, that'll be fantastic. But as you know, there's times where there's infighting, or players don't necessarily go out all the time and hang out with each other. But the one thing that they all have in common is that they're striving to win a championship, and that's their main goal. So you're not going to necessarily be lifelong friends with everyone on your team, but your goal is to win the championship. And in this case, your goal is to finish the project on time. And the next bullet point here is that get into the habit of escalating to your instructor if you have teammates on your school project that are just not cooperating, or they're just trying to ride the efforts of the rest of the team. This needs to be called out immediately. Firstly, meet with the student and tell them about the issue at hand, where they need to pick up their pace or they need to pick up their work so that they contribute as much as the other teammates. If that doesn't work out, then you'll have to escalate to the instructor. And this is a practice you should understand, because in the real world, in the corporate environment, you may have situations like this where you need to escalate to management when you have resources at risk of putting the project underwater and really failing the project. So you want to get into this habit here. Now, the next bullet point here is that when you're developing your resume, the experiences that you have working on school projects, you want to structure them more as projects. Because a lot of times, and I've gone through this also, you're struggling to find what you put on your resume as experience. So what you want to do here is just leverage the projects that you worked in your class, structure them as projects on your resume, and kind of go into the above points where you managed communications, you managed escalations, you managed the distribution of tasks to the team, and you managed, risks to your school project not finishing on time. You want to show those types of things on your resume. And the last bullet point here, you don't have to stop at school assignments to gain project management experience. You may want to just sit down with a notebook and really try to brainstorm how creative you can get to see how you can gain project management experience. And off the top of my head, you can volunteer for like your local church. Maybe there's a Boy Scout or Girl Scouts group nearby. Excuse me. You may have a township JC's group that does activities for the township that you live in. Think about what's in your town and what organizations you can volunteer for. And some of the projects you can help are listed here. You can manage a website, even if it's just a single web page development. That's still a project nonetheless. No matter how big or small the project is, it's a project that you can put on your resume. Other examples are cleanup projects, or even planning an event. That's a project in itself also. Like when they plan, for example, if the church in your area is planning an event, there's components that go there. The seating arrangements, getting the timings for the hall. You need to rent out the hall and ensuring that food would be served. All of those are components of projects that you can put on your resume, and employers will definitely look at that. So that wraps it up for this section for if you're still in college. The next portion I want to look at is if you're currently employed. And this is for those of you who are professionals, but you're thinking about moving into project management. The best way to do this, in my experience, is that firstly, talk to your manager about your intentions. Tell them about the fact that you want to start managing projects, and your manager will definitely be able to sit with you and work with you, because they would be the ones to understand what's going on in your department overall that you might not be aware of. So they may give you a special assignment where you can treat it as a project. So definitely reach out to your manager and talk to your manager from that perspective. And once you get into a project with your team, kind of like what I mentioned with the school projects, you are the person that has to lead the team. So you have to set expectations with your project team, and especially with how things are going to work, because maybe your team is not used to this. Your team is used to the regular formal structure where everybody reports to your manager, but there's no intermediary project manager. So this is the first time this is happening. Some of your teammates may have difficulty adjusting to this. So you have to, again, influence and set expectations as to how the project will work out. You want to, again, sub-bullet here, you want to work with the team to develop a project plan. Again, this is something you don't want to do on your own. You want to definitely have input from your team so that you can have a solid plan with realistic expectation. Second point here is that you want to agree on deadlines. This is definitely very important. And again, you want to go into the communications management. You want to detail how you're going to communicate with the team, how often you're going to be emailing, how often the meetings will be, status reporting. Are you going to have like a PowerPoint presentation with status reports every week, or is it going to be using some sort of tool like Jira or something to that effect? How will you do your status reports? And again, to this final sub-bullet, you want to hold people accountable for their tasks. Again, you got to set the expectation that the teammates must get their tasks done on time. Because if you're not pushing them to get their tasks done, then the deadline dates become too flexible and your teammates are not going to take it too seriously. So you do have to kind of be a pest and definitely hold accountable your teammates for their tasks. Now, one thing that I found very useful in order to put experience on your resume is this next point here, where you want to maintain a diary of your projects, in the sense that at the end of the day, you just want to kind of have like a bulleted diary, not such something so verbose, but just a bulleted diary where you can note your accomplishments for that day, or what challenges you faced for that day and how did you overcome it. So ultimately, you want to use this to help you update your resume, and you want this to register as experience for when you take your project management professional certification. What happens with that certification, as part of the application process, you have to list out your experience. So having a diary ready, it really helps. You don't have to sit there and brainstorm as to what you did. You already have a written record in your diary, and it makes that application process just a little bit more easier. And then another thing is that you want to attain support from your manager with your experience, because ultimately they would be the ones as a reference point for your certification process. So you definitely want to have your manager's input as to how you're doing, or if they can help you brainstorm of other achievements that you've done as a project manager from what they've seen. It's always good to have another pair of eyes to oversee your work and get that opinion as to what you've accomplished, because sometimes you're not going to think of everything. So it's good to have your manager there to back you up and to help you understand all of the accomplishments that you've done. And then finally, the final bullet point, I do recommend taking the project management professional exam from the perspective that it will give you fantastic foundational knowledge of the project management profession. It goes top to bottom into all the aspects of project management that you need to understand. And of course, when you do get a job as a project manager, depending on the organization you work at, you may or may not use all of that information from your exam that you study for. But the thing is that foundational knowledge will always be there. So the job role may change from organization to organization, but the overall knowledge from the project management exam is good to have in your back pocket as a toolkit. One thing, again, I need to remind you, it's not enough just passing the project management professional exam. It's also about your personality. You have to be the one to drive the projects, and you cannot be the type of person that you're just creating artifacts and creating project plans, very detailed. Your work might be very neat, but the thing is, you have to hold people accountable, and you have to develop that personality to hold people accountable and to stay on track to finish the project on time. Here as an introduction, this is an introductory video of myself. You can get information regarding my background, my job experience, and also my courses. I have a couple of courses that are currently out: project budget and cost management, as well as time management for project managers. These courses are already out, and I'm working on a third course, Microsoft Excel for project managers. And also you can check out my blog here. I have some blog posts. So definitely feel free to visit my website. And I'm very happy to bring you this lecture. And I look forward to bringing you some more helpful videos in the area of project management. Thank you so much. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.